I've been troubled for many years about rules and regulations which come into church life and which can make life seem inhibited or take away some of the joie de vivre, the joy of living. And we're going to take some examples of that from Primitive Methodism, which is probably the movement I know most about. But I have discovered what I call legalism in a range of different churches, different backgrounds, different history, different origin. Well, this is what Joseph Ritson wrote about the Primitive Methodists: their heroic exploits, their Herculean labours, their hairbreadth escapes, their quenchless zeal, their dauntless courage, their unfailing audacity, and the marvellous and permanent success they achieved is one long romance. And it's true, look at the way their membership grew from 1829 to 1852. And compare the Primitive Methodist movement with some other British revivals. The revival in the Beithgelert area, 5 years. The revival throughout Britain in the 1850s and 60s, 6 years. The Welsh revival, less than 1 year. East Anglia and the coast of Scotland, that took place in 1921. The Hebridean awakening, 4 years. But Primitive Methodism sustained or renewed revival events and revival vigour for at least 3 decades. But there was a darker strain, the same strain expressed in different ways that I have found in other churches in much more recent times. Now, what is legalism? It is not adopting rules for yourself. You are free to impose rules on yourself which will help you to live a holy and good life. You must do it voluntarily, of course. It's not imposed by other people. Legalism is imposing your personally adopted rules on other people so that you require them to live in the way you have adopted. And that is something that a number of churches have done. As I say, a range of churches. Here are some examples from Primitive Methodism illustrated in various ways. Reading Quarterly Minutes. Brother Gilbert shall wear his watch in his pocket. Now, he was a local preacher, and you can see me there preaching, and oh dear, my watch is on full display. By the way, I'm not dressed for preaching there because that particular service was in Sicily, and I don't travel around when I'm abroad with a suit and smart shirt and tie. Brinkworth Circuit Minutes, 1835, quoted by Tonks on page 109. Resolution that Brother W.B. have a note written to him concerning his sideboards. Now, I don't know if my sideboards on that photograph would have passed muster or not, but obviously Brother W.B.'s didn't in the Brinkworth Circuit. And by the way, Tonks doesn't give us his full name. William Clowes, one of the early Primitive Methodist leaders, greatly used of God, no doubt about that. This is what he wrote in his journal about a certain Mary Byatt. The Lord gave me their daughter Mary as a seal to my ministry. I spoke to her in the name of the Lord on the subject of laying her curls aside. Well, those 3 young ladies singing at the front of a church I preached in some while ago would not have met with William Clowes's approval. Teetotalism. Now, it's a good thing to say for yourself, I will drink no wine or strong drink. If you are the kind of person who, if he starts, finds it difficult to stop or even can't stop, or if you feel that others might follow your example who have that weakness. But Primitive Methodism adopted teetotalism from about the 1830s and became stricter and stricter about it. Not only Primitive Methodism, I say, I'm taking my examples from there. What is even worse, in my view, is this minute from the Andover Quarterly Minute Book, that it be recommended that our various societies send petitions to Parliament against Sabbath day tippling. What is tippling? It is drinking for pleasure rather than thirst. Now, it doesn't seem right to me for the Church, which may wish to practice teetotalism itself, to try to impose restrictions on people's use of Sunday and people's use of alcohol by going through Parliament, to try and make a law of what they have adopted voluntarily. The Reading Quarterly Minutes again, and here you see a photograph of my grandfather before his conversion. He became a local preacher later amongst the Wesleyans. That the superintendent, C.G. Church, relating to his playing music at his club. Primitive Methodist Leader was a weekly denominational newspaper, and in the 1920s there were abundant articles and correspondence on what they called temperance, by which they meant teetotalism, whist drives, dances, and bazaars, and there you see me dancing. And the Priest Green Circuit, this was 1920, quarterly meeting. They expressed agreement with a letter from the General Denominational Committee, discountenancing dances and whist drives. We strongly disapprove of Christian people taking part in such worldly games. And another minute of the period expresses disapproval of gambling and raffles. And here back in Reading, our connection does not allow its members to attend worldly amusements. And I'm afraid one of those people in a Gilbert and Sullivan operetta is me. All our members are strongly recommended to refrain from going out in the night on Christmas singing. That wasn't just one circuit, that was conference. Now, I've written a book about early primitive Methodism called The Great River, and one of the things I talk about, apart from their wonderful achievements under the blessing and guidance of God, is their legalism. Going to the conjurer, using the pawnbroker, attending the annual hunt, going to the circus. These are all disapproved of, and I mention that on page 160. F.W. Harper wrote in the Souvenir and Handbook of the Brinkworth District Synod, 1932, "It is not denied that there was a superficial narrowness, ludicrous limitations, and eccentricities." So they did attain astonishing achievements, and Joseph Pearce wrote a book entitled Burning and Shining Lights, Primitive Methodist Radiant Personalities. There's no denying the wonder of their religion, but there was this darker strain. And Valentine Cunningham wrote this in his book Everywhere Spoken Against. Chapel life is usually presented as being so life-denying, so uniformly dreary, and the members are so unattractive, the preachers so grotesque, that it is difficult on such a showing to see why people bothered to belong. Dickinson, in his article Methodism in English Fiction, most 19th century novels dismissed Methodism as a distasteful or hypocritical sect. Methodism has become, in English fiction since 1900, a convenient cipher for repressive religious hypocrisy. That is one of the effects of legalism in church. Another effect is that it divides your purposes, your energy, your work, and your resources. And one question I often ask, are today's churches devoting time, energy, and resources into matters which the scriptures do not rule on? So legalism, therefore, makes Christianity unattractive to outsiders. And something I've not mentioned, but is very important, It makes Christians feel inadequate or insecure, or it makes Christians proud of their own personal holiness. That attitude is sometimes called holier than thou. But mainly, legalism is not drawn directly from the Scriptures. We must obey the things the Scriptures say. But the rules I have mentioned to you, and many others that have been invented by different churches at different times, are things which God has not ruled on, and we have no right to impose them on other people. We can, if we wish, adopt them ourselves, voluntarily. But now I'm going to close by reading a few verses from Scripture. See to it that no one makes a prey of you by philosophy and empty deceit, according to human tradition, according to the elemental spirits of the universe, and not according to Christ. Therefore let no one pass judgment on you in questions of food and drink, or with regard to a festival, or a new moon, or a Sabbath. If with Christ you died to the elemental spirits of the universe, why do you live as if you still belonged to the world? Why do you submit to regulations? Do not handle, do not taste, do not touch, referring to things which all perish as they are used, according to human precepts and doctrines. These indeed have an appearance of wisdom in promoting rigour of devotion and self-abasement and severity to the body, but they are of no value in checking the indulgence of the flesh. And if you want further devotional reading, or you want to listen to more talks on different themes, you can go to the website primitivemethodism.com. And may God bless you.